Hi, my name is LaQuincey Reed, and I'm here with Mike Wimmer, who's a painter and a former artist in residence here at the Skirvin Hilton space. So, Mike, give a brief introduction about yourself and what you do.
Well, I've been a professional artist since the age of actually 13, but real professional after graduation. I graduated at the University of Oklahoma in 1983. And so that puts me at almost 40 years or more now as a professional artist and illustrator. As an illustrator, I painted, over 20 children's books, a number of large movie projects for Disney, Lion King, Hunchback of Notre Dame, Pocahontas, Hercules, pre-production work for those movies. I do a lot of commercial work for, people know me primarily for Mr. Clean and for Brawny Paper Towels and Celestial Seasons and, a lot of commercial things that people see and no one really pays much attention to other than, I've seen that.
Yeah.
And then I do a lot of fine art and portraits, as I describe them, people who have accomplished all sorts of great things in their lives. And now this is the chance for me to capture their legacy. One of my favorite clients has been the state capitol building. I painted, I think it's my 48th painting has just been dedicated in the state capitol. And those are historical paintings and also paintings of people from history and Oklahoma history as well. And then the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. It's always nice to meet my fellow Okies who are winning acclaim and being honored. And I'm extremely honored when they ask me to paint their portraits and capture their legacy at the same time.
Well, good deal. Do you still also teach? Are you teaching at Savannah?
I do. Right now I'm teaching full time. Great. Thanks for reminding me. I should know. That's what I was doing before I came in here.
Yeah.
I'm teaching at SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design. Before that, I was the artist in residence and the chair of the department at Oklahoma City University. And before that, I taught at Cameron University. I taught at in OC, Oklahoma Christian, and at the University of Oklahoma.
All right, good deal. I think I wanted to cover that too, because that's going to lead into another question I want to ask you later on.
Okay, perfect.
So you said you've been a professional artist since, you were 13. Have you been like me, like you just can't see yourself doing anything else? You had to be with a pencil in your hand or something in your hand creating? Is that kind of how you've always been?
I was never as good looking as you, Quincy, but I'm trying. I'm working on it. Okay. But I have been literally. I was like you. You were probably that kid in the homeroom. Oh, LaQuincey, Mike. Can you paint a poster for homecoming? Can you do this? Yeah, that was me all the time. And I'm a visual learner. I love to read. My mom became a college professor. She taught me to read at a very early age, mostly because books would just feed my imagination. So I always read. The funny thing is all my book reports were illustrated. All my math reports were illustrated. All my history reports were illustrated. So everything I did always had art to go along with it. It was just something that I would do. I process information visually as well. So that probably has a lot to do with it too.
So with, you having such a long career and, this not being this being the only thing that you've ever wanted to do with your life,
Not the only thing.
Okay. Well, one of the only things.
I had dreams of being a professional football player.
Yeah.
The problem is I picked the wrong size parents.
Yeah, that's kind of, I have a brother who's playing at Southwestern and he's about as tall as I am, 5'9", and they want him big. And
they grow them really big.
Yeah, they are huge. But this being one of the things that you've always wanted to do, what's a piece of advice you would give to a young person that's wanting to pursue a career in the arts?
This is something I tell students all the time. This has to be a fatal addiction. It really does. If you want to do this, there's okay to have as a hobby. Art makes you a happy person. It makes you a well-rounded person. But if this is going to be a profession, if this is going to be something you want to do, it has to be an obsession that you can't get away from.
Yeah.
It is not easy. It's just not. I think you would probably do that. Put on stop.
Yeah.
The lawn guys are here. So
okay. So you've talked about being an illustrator, a portrait painter, historical painter. just painting all these different subjects, how do you approach things? Is there a different mindset whenever you're approaching doing a portrait versus something for a commercial aspect, like illustration or something like that, versus doing something that's a historical piece? Or do you approach everything with the same kind of mindset?
That's, it's a good question. I know that I think about it, and I know I give thought to it. It's primarily.
You're cutting out, Mike. I can't hear you very well.
Yeah, and again, I'm sorry. It's because the lawn care guys are here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they're drowning out my voice. No, I give thought to it. I know I do, and I give a lot of conscious thought to it. For me, it's about telling a story. I mean, whether it's a portrait. I mean, that's a portrait, not only a picture of what someone looks like. It's a story of their accomplishments and what they've done with their lives and what they're being honored for in their lives. That sort of thing too. When I'm selling a product or advertising for a product, it's still a story. What is it about this product that makes it stand out and special from everybody else? I'm probably a lot more honest as an artist when I am painting the things that come from me or through my children's books, because then it's like the whole narrative. I really get to tell the whole story all the way through. I'm giving carte blanche, so to speak, to be able to kind of give it my, imprimatur, my opinion, my through my vision, my filter, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing is primarily, what is the story I'm trying to say? What is it I want to tell people? What's important? I'm setting a hierarchy. One of the things I do as a teacher is I tell my students all the time, I'm teaching you how to lie very convincingly.
Yeah.
Visually, because what you're doing is you're directing your viewer what's important. You're telling them this little thing right up here in the corner is the most important part of the painting or a sculpture. You do that through detail. You do that through composition. Apologize again. Sounds like these guys are going to keep coming. And so we really are, in many ways. People say, "Oh, you've captured the truth." Well, I have. I've captured a portion of the truth. It's hard to tell the whole truth visually because I only have a limited scope to do so. Usually a flat two-dimensional plane, for my case, 3 dimensions for yours. And I'm trying to give the illusion that this might be three-dimensional, or this might be timeless, or it might be a morning, or it might be, but in the reality, all I'm doing is playing with these colored, goopy liquid, on this flat surface and putting it on there with a hairy stick. That's the truth.
Yeah.
That's the, now I'm not even doing it with a brush. I'm doing it with pixels, and many of my clients as well. But it's all creating an illusion of truth, a perception of what we think is true.
Yeah. So,
and in order to be a good truth teller, you really have to be a good observer more than anything. The hardest part of my job is really having my eyes and my ears and my mind open to what's going on in front of me. What's my, what's the solution I'm trying to find? First of all, why am I doing this? And then what's the solution I'm trying to get across?
That kind of was a little bit of my philosophy when I was teaching. And I was teaching calligraphy as an art teacher, high school art teacher, and painting and everything like that. And especially with calligraphy and pen and ink. And the kids would sometimes, how come we don't get like the cartridge pens where you don't have to like worry about blobs and stuff? And I said, because I want you to pay attention to what you're doing while you're doing it. Slow down and kind of be in the moment and, be aware of what you're doing while you're doing it. And it's very hard for people to sit down and be in the moment and pay attention to what they're doing while they're doing it. And that was one of the things I tried to instill in them. I don't know if it ever got through to them.
It does. It always gets through a little. And it's at the time, in the moment, you worry, but they come back 2 years later and they tell you, "Oh, thank you for doing this." My wife, who's teaching here at SCAD with me as well, we both, this is what we talk about. This is our life. This is, we go to work and we talk about art, and we help others learn about art, and we help others find their own visual voice. And then we come home and we talk about it. And We just got new books today. We're looking at those. We go to art shows. We've got a student show to go to later tonight. And so this is what we do. I mean, it's about art. Art is our life. My son is a professional musician. My son-in-law is a videographer, and he's, a storyteller, and he owns his own ad agency and that sort of thing too. So he's an artist. This is what we do.
Yeah.
We surround ourselves with stories and art. And I think that part, when you were talking about, the connection, the hardest part to get students to understand is it doesn't just flow out of you automatically complete.
Mm-hmm.
It's a skill. It takes practice, and I try to emphasize that this practice will give you the skill that will equip you to have a better voice.
Yeah.
So that you can tell a better story.
Yeah.
The story's there, but maybe your skills aren't there yet to tell the story. And that just takes practice. And that's why I said it earlier, that you have to be a person with an unerring passion for this, because the frustration is always your own. It's not good enough to tell the story that's in your head. You're not quite there. And that's the frustrating part.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you a little bit about your teaching. So you mentioned kind of briefly that you're doing a lot of work with pixels, and I've been following you on Instagram, and I've saw that. See, I've known you for a while. I don't know if you remember me.
It's been quite a while. Yeah, it's been quite a while.
And I've only ever known you as a painter, doing things like physically painting. So to see you branch out and doing the digital stuff, how did that come about? Was that a necessity because of how the world is kind of becoming this digital thing, or was this an interest and you kind of followed along? How did that all kind of generate?
It's a little bit of both. That's great, because even when I was painting, even though I still paint, most of my images, they still have to be digitized, simply because that's the way we deliver information these days. Mm-hmm. Unless I'm literally taking it to a gallery and hanging it on a gallery wall, and someone takes it off the gallery wall and takes it home. That's about the only real connection to just what we would think of as ancient technology. Anything more that if I want to deliver it, I'm going to take a photograph. I don't take film photographs anymore. I take these little pixel images that get transferred, and others people look at them on their phone or their devices, or they can then later be translated into print form so they can print posters or books. So the technology kind of led me there. Yeah. And then the fact that so many of my initial commercial clients didn't want to pay for shipping anymore, or didn't want to pay. They wanted to keep eliminating costs on their end and made it cost efficient to make art. And for them, it might be cost efficient. For you and I mean, that easel, it'll last for 150 years, whereas this computer that I'm talking to you on maybe has a life of 5 years. And all of that has to be replaced on a regular basis. And then once you learn something, you can learn, wow, I could never do that with paint. Oh my God. That's exciting. Let me play with this. It's like sculpting. We're teaching three-dimensional techniques. We're using Blender, we're using Maya, we're using ZBrush to sculpt with and create three-dimensional elements as well. And it's so much easier, quicker, and faster to be able to take what I used to do a clay maquette, and then with mathematics and a lot of muscle, enlarge it, over time with a lot of time. And then from there, maybe you had to enlarge it one more time if it was going to be a monumental. And then you would take all the time to create the molds for it, take it apart, have it. Now I can literally on my computer turn it around three-dimensionally, or my wife and I were in an AR, VR workshop last week, create it, put the goggles on and create it in front of me this way, send all of that in a package over and have someone print it in a three-dimensional form, enlarge it whatever size it needs to be enlarged to. And then if it needs to be bronze, we can still print out something, create molds from that, and then create a bronze. Yeah,
I haven't gone in that direction, but I'm kind of thinking with everything, like with the video editing that I'm doing for this, I had to learn how to do all this, and I don't like doing it, but I had to learn it. So it's one of those things that I'm probably going to end up having to learn because that's where everything's going.
It is only because the world is more competitive. That world's got so much smaller. I mean, one of the things you and I were talking before we started recording is that idea of what inspires you. I remember going to the bookstore was about the only way we could actually discover a new artist, unless you just happen to have come upon a gallery opening or an exhibition of someone's work. But again, you would have never found that artist unless they had not already been considered fame worthy and worthy of putting in a gallery or something like that. Now, I mean, we can open our Instagram. You and I were talking about Instagram. I can find any artist throughout the world and just be in awe of their capabilities and their production and what they're making, you know. And and then you find out they're a 13-year-old in Taiwan.
Yeah, there's some talented kids out there. The biggest challenge I had with a lot of kids, it was a love-hate relationship with the technology. It's great that we can access all this stuff.
Yep.
It's great that you can go anywhere in the world and find just basically anything of anybody doing any number of things. The big problem I had with high school kids is that they saw something on Instagram, they saw something on Pinterest, and that's what they wanted to do.
Oh, I know.
And my biggest my complaint was, or my biggest pet peeve was, that's fine, but I want to be able to find you in the work. I want to be able to find your voice. So I would tell them, why don't you reference 3 different things and combine them? And, you know, I'd bring up examples and things like that and say, hey, you know, Kehinde Wildy was somebody that I brought up a lot because he would, you know, take the wallpaper, European art, and then, you know, Blacks, or he would even do, I think he even did Indians from India, and, you know, combine these different cultures, these different things, and make a new work of art. And it was really a struggle and a challenge for these kids to find 3 things and figure out a way to mash them together, because all they wanted to do was see a picture, paint a picture, or I like that, I want to make that. And, you know, at some point you just got to realize, you know, if that's really what you want to do, have at it. Let's do that. And we'll do the best.
You're a hobbyist.
Yeah.
That's kind of what you are in many ways. Exactly.
That's, you know, that's fine and everything. But my goal, my hope was to get them to be.
I'll block a little bit more of that light for you.
Yeah,
sorry.
You're good. But my goal was to, you know, find them and, you know, help them try and do something a little bit more authentically them. But
that is one of the hardest parts, even in college. It's my wife and I we're going through this all the time, and we're thinking, how do we get them inspired to be themselves? Because we'll see some great pieces, and then we find out that they were just doing a master copy. Yeah. And again, nothing wrong with master copies. I mean, it's how I learned, it's probably how you learn in many ways, because what you're doing is you're trying to learn how did that artist make that particular decision to do so. Mm-hmm. And the only way to learn that is by almost following in their footsteps. Literally. Yeah. But that's not original. And you can't sell that as yours. You can't claim that as yours. You know, it's great. You learn that skill, and that is a skill making process, but that is not creativity. Yeah. And that's not making as you said, finding yourself in the art. That's a struggle. And especially now, everything is so instantaneously consumable that all they want to do is be liked. It's all about, you know, how many likes do I have? How many people are looking at my Instagram feed? And, mm-hmm. you know, and of course, so then they're making stuff that they believe others want to see. So we keep getting a regurgitation of the same ideas and the same imagery over and over and over and over from a variety of artists and people.
Yeah, it's like we're making a bunch of mini Hollywoods. They're always remaking, sequelizing, prequelizing, everything.
Exactly. It's the same kind of thing. And that's always a headache. It really is.
So let's transition and talk about your time here at the Space. You focus mainly on your Will Work series, where right. you were talking to people and painting them, where they would talk about the things that, you know, they wanted to work for to make, if I'm wrong, correct me, to make things better. So
it was better, or it's just their particular, you know, internal inspiration. What is it that gets you up in the morning? What is it that gives you purpose in life? What is it that you find valuable? And I'm still fascinated by that. I've been carrying on that, I guess that whole series here in Savannah as well. COVID has closed some of that stuff down. It's hard to get people in here to pose or even find their stories. We're all isolated. But it's really been primarily something I'm still fascinated about. And I did. And so having that fishbowl experience, gave me a space for that. And I thought it perfect because I got one of my favorite paintings out of the whole series was literally had 3 homeless kids who were hoboing around, the United States, just happened to walk by. They gave me a thumbs up. I invited them in. I fed them. They looked like they needed feeding. So I fed them and gave them, something to drink. And then we started talking about excursions and what they've been doing. And when I asked if they'd be interested in posing, and they, sure, and so it was good. I had some cardboard there as part of the experience so they could write a sign. And no, he just pulled his cardboard sign right out of his guitar case. I mean, I couldn't live it any more realistic than that. And so I love that experience. It's been, as I was telling you earlier, it's probably one of my favorite artistic experiences I've had.
Yeah.
Just being there and being able to use the studio as a place to create and have a purpose to create, and enjoying not only that, but all the friends I made at Skirvin. I really enjoyed everybody I worked with. I would eat with them in the cafeteria and of course get to know the people who were working on a regular basis. And then all the regulars who just come through the Skirvin all the time. That was nice. And then we would get to meet the basketball teams, and I would get to meet the, one of my favorite groups was the young kids from, what were they from, huh? Oh, we were, I thought she was saying something. And so one of the young kids that were from I'm trying to remember the name of the troupe, but it's the, what was it? Cirque du Soleil. They came through and they were all from all over the world, and they were all, fit, and they were all happy. They would love what they were doing, and just seeing that exuberance for life being reflected in them. It just gave me a great feeling, all over, and be able to paint their portraits and meet them at the same time too. So yeah, just being there was a great experience. I enjoyed every minute of it. I was very sad to see it end. Much so because I had to leave a few months early to take the position here at Savannah. And so I wanted to stay every moment of every hour of every day that I could. And I came in every day just to take advantage of it and work there.
Well, that's kind of been my experience. It's been, I've got like barricading and everything like that. So that's been a little bit of a hindrance in terms of people wanting to come in as much and being as exposed as I probably could be, but it's been great. I've been able to meet a lot of people from all over the world. So I do want to talk about the piece that you donated, and I'm going to share my screen.
Oh, yes, please.
And just kind of talk to me about, what was the process? What were you thinking? And when you donated this piece to the Skirvin?
And really the donation was, I asked the Skirvin to come in and pick out a piece that they liked, and they all liked this one. I said, okay, then this will be, But this was one of my favorite paintings at the time I did it. As you can tell, it's a strange subject matter to paint. And it was originally painted as a demonstration on composition, how to make a painting from literally anything. You were talking about teaching your students, where's your voice in this? Find something interesting. And there's something interesting in everything you come across, and finding it and then bringing that out.
Yeah.
I love the patina of this vise, and I love its heaviness and its weight. But I was also teaching it as a compositional tool, all of those horizontals and all those verticals, the kind of squares, then, contrapposto, and working against that soft, fleshy apple and the roundness of it. And then the dark values versus the light values. And how do you bring the weight? You have all this super heavy weight of the visually, and not only visually, but physically, of the vice on the right side of the painting.
Mhm.
And so you have to give it more white space on the left side of the painting to be able to counterbalance that, to bring it visually and kind of spiritually level again, to balance the composition. So it was just a teaching moment for me, and getting lost at the same time in painting that patina, that wear and tear, the life that it's had before it ever found me in the studio.
So I guess that brings me to my next question. You do paint still lifes as well. That's another thing that I forgot to ask you about. Were you painting a lot of still lifes at the time, or was this just part of a demo? Do you paint still lifes as a demo, then you do portraits? Is this kind of part of your teaching process as well?
It is. I mean, when I'm teaching something, you know, whether I'm teaching using a compositional, and that's part of my composition presentation I give to the students. And again, what is composition? Nothing more than taking the format that we're going to view the world through. Then how do you make a beautiful image out of it? But also, how do you lead the eye through it? How do you direct the viewer to be, what is the most important part of that? And you're using contrast, and you're using color, and you're using contrast of shapes at the same time, and contrast of soft and hard and warm and cool and light and dark. And then you're using, you're using transitional lines to bring the eye through. Some of those might be shadows that are purposely painted in an area. Again, you're pointing all that out to students that never saw it before, and understand, now that you say that, it makes sense, but I would have never thought about that. And so they don't realize I'm taking them by the hand and leading them through a picture or leading them through a story. So I do like painting still lifes. I find beauty in everything. Yeah. I find beauty in, just the texture of the patina of something. Oh, that'll make a nice painting. I'm going to buy that, and sit around the studio for a while and just look at it on a regular basis all the time, and then it turns into a painting. It may be its own painting. It may be part of another painting. I always find that interesting, as you can see, even in the portrait behind me, painting the minutia, painting the stuff that helps tell the story in the background too. So those things are part of it as well. I paint landscapes. Some of those landscapes, and if I can turn it slightly, you can see there's a little fantasy landscape there of a gnome home at the same time too. So, and I love being outside and just painting what's inspired by the light, inspired by the textures, inspired. One of the assignments I would always give my students when we were outdoor painting was, the assignment was just to paint, and I want to feel the coolness of the shade of a tree. And that's it. I don't care what you paint, what kind of tree you paint, how abstractly you paint it, or how realistically. If it doesn't make me feel cool, like I'm standing in the shade, then it's a fail.
Yeah.
How do you do that? You have to be in touch with your emotions. This is part of what we're communicating on a human level. Yeah. We just happen to be using paint, pigment, sculpture, 3D elements to do that. It's as a teacher or as an artist, that's what we're using.
Well, Mike, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I really appreciate you sitting down and visiting with me. Is there any social media website or anything like that you want everybody to know about?
Oh, well, of course, that's good. Thanks for giving me the chance. My web pages are mikewimmer.com, mikewimmerportraits.com. And then my wife and I have a labor of love that we've been doing for ourselves. And it's painting our fairies and painting our gnome homes and painting that imaginary world that we have all escaped to as children, and some of us as adults still escape to. It's called wimmerswoods.com. You can visit my Instagram site at Wimmer Art as well. So just find me, tell me if you like something, tell me if you don't like something. But I do have a question for you too, LaQuincey. I'm getting ready to come back and deliver a number of paintings in Oklahoma here at the end of June. Are you going to be around in the end of June?
I will be here the last week of June. The week before that, I have to head up to an art show all the way up in Whitefish, Montana. That's almost in Canada.
Sounds terrible. Oh my God. Yeah.
So, but I will be back that very last week of June.
Okay, good. That's when I plan on being here, is the last week of June. So I can't wait to come by and see you in your space and say hi.
I'll be looking for you then.
All right.
All right. Very nice talking to you. And we'll see you in June then.
Thanks, LaQuincey, for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
All right, take care.